Hey guys, Monique Leslie, Misfit Crafter here from Misfit Crafter Studio, and I want to bring you a really fun workshop where you can use up all of your scraps. It's perfect for getting rid of scraps, and this way you can justify all those scrap stashes that you have. So in this workshop, where it's called Scrap Embellishments, we are going to be making 3 different scrap embellishments, and all of them I have used on this particular junk journal here. One of the things that we are going to be making are paper beads, as you can see right here along the spine. The other one is going to be a puff ruffle that we're going to be putting in different places. You can use it for anything you want along with the beads. And then the last one is going to be these mini paper stacks, or mini stamp stacks. Mini paper stamp stacks. You can call it whatever you like. So I'll show you the different pieces individually, but you can see them here used in this book all together. So there's like the mini stamp stack and the little puff ruffle and all the little different paper beads along the edge right here that are really cute. All right, so basically we're going to be making the 3 different ones. So here's a little idea of the project you're actually going to see throughout this video for the miniature stamp stack. And then right here is the ruffle that we'll actually be making during the video. You'll see us gathering and putting together this little ruffle piece. This is just a little sample, but these are the different puff ruffles that you can make, and with some really simple techniques. An idea of the different stamp stacks right here that you can make, just to give you a good idea when we go along putting these projects together. I love this one, super cute. Right, and then the other one, last but not least, and we're actually going to be doing that one first, is the paper beads. So I'll show you how to form different shapes of paper beads, along with also how to protect them, shape them, do all of those really good things, and how to attach them to things. So let's go ahead and get started. First thing we're going to get started with is our supply list of the different things that we're going to need to make these. And our biggest thing is going to be scraps. So go ahead and take a look at the following video for our supply list. All right, so the materials might start looking a little overwhelming with everything that I put up here, but it's really simple. You need scraps. That's the whole point of this workshop, is that you need lots and lots of scraps, whether it be paper scraps, leftover bits of washi paper, little cutouts, the last little bits of cutouts, cardstock in different sizes, you know, just some cardboard, little decorations and little cardstock pieces, die cuts, little things like that, little flowers, glitter to enhance some stuff, some regular washi tape, just anything that you have, from like beads, cardboard, moss. I like using little bits of moss in between, little beads, pens, anything that you might have that can enhance and just use for stacking. But mostly your scraps. That's the biggest thing. Some of the other things you are going to need throughout everything is some decorative edge scissors to make the edges look more like stamps. These just happen to be sort of like a funny little wave, but it makes more of kind of the stamp pattern right here. If you don't have those, not a big deal. You can still just make little stacks. Triple thick, some sort of gloss or glaze for your beads, a brush to apply that with. For the beads, again, little tweezers or a nice sized awl or poker, whatever you want to call it. These two will work when we want to roll our beads. Glue, just general glue of some kind, fast drying glues, tapes, some paint pens or some paint sprays, ink pads, whatever you have to decorate. This is like the really fun one where you can just bring out everything that you have to make all the things, I guess you can say. One of the first things we're going to start off with is our beads. Some of the optional things that you may want are a little flower frog like this. And what this is really, you could probably make your own out of a piece of wood and put a bunch of nails sticking up. But basically this is really just to help dry your beads. So anything that you could lay your beads on like that, it kind of like just holds it in there. So anything that can hold your beads without touching the whole thing. They make all kinds of like drying racks and things like this, but I found a flower frog like this to be the easiest. I found them at local craft store, you know, the big one with the M. They're weighted and they're meant to hold flowers, basically. If this were a real flower, it's basically meant to like push flower stems and stuff in it to help hold them up in arrangements and stuff. But it really helps when drying things and stuff too. Like I said, little flowers, anything that you want to use to enhance and do the different things. We're going to basically get all the basics out of the way. A few extra sheets of cardstock will always help, anything like that, if you want to make like bigger pieces of stacks or whatever. And then optionally, there is a way to get this little pack of printable papers free on my website. So if you go over to misfitcrafterstudio.com or click the link that should be attached with this workshop, then you can grab this freebie download that you can print out, and you can use it for all the different projects we're going to do throughout all of this. So let's go ahead and get started. Like I said, we're going to go ahead and start with the beads. So we're going to need our scraps for the first round. All right, so the first one we're going to get started with, so while we clean up a little, is going to be our paper beads. So for our paper beads, we're mostly right now going to need something to dry them on. So like I said, if you have a flower frog, you can make one of these by yourself with little sticks or little nails going through a piece of wood. But these are really, really, really inexpensive. Usually come in a 2-pack for those. You're going to want your tweezers or your awl. You're going to want your strips of paper or the paper that is in my paper pack. Comes with all kinds of really cool ways to strip paper. So they come already kind of with designed strips ahead of time, so it looks like scraps. But if you have your paper scraps, just go ahead and grab those. And then we're just going to need our glue and something to coat it with. It could be Mod Podge, triple thick. I just like triple thick because it gives it a really, really pretty gloss to make it a little more like bead-like. So more shiny, shiny bead kind of thing happening. All right. Now, there's different ways of doing this, and it's actually really, really simple. You just want to take your strips, whatever strip size you want, and there's different ways of doing this. So initially, one of the things that you can do is just make a straight bead, which you can grab these really small strips of paper. It's pretty much the best thing because you can use up a bunch of these strips. And what I like to do is take an awl, and we just fold over the first piece. And you can fold it up as far as you want. I try not to fold it too far up. And for the first one, we're just going to do a straight bead with the thin piece. And all you're going to do is take your glue and just add a little dab of glue just to hold it in place while we want to roll this, okay? So I usually just push it up just a little above my glue line so that it kind of holds it really nice and tight like that. So it's just holding on to the awl. If you use the tweezers instead, you can do similar, where you just place, you know, make the loop around one side or even both of them. It doesn't really matter. And then you just twist this. The reason that I like the awl a little bit more than tweezers is that tweezers tend to have a little more of a cone angle. So your bead ends up a little bit more uneven that way. And I like the bigger, longer awl just because I can work with different size beads this way. And this one's a really long one. You can see these on my supply list. In my shop, actually, I do offer this one in my shop. But then we're just gonna roll. It's super simple. Once you have that, get rolling. And you can either do this motion to get it going. That's one way, or the wrapping around like this. Whichever way you prefer to get it to go. I tend to do this more than anything. And I just wrap it around. And then once I got it kind of tight and going, then I'll start kind of doing the spinning. What you want to feel is a nice tight wrap. You don't want too big of a hole. Because just remember, that's how big of a hole you're going to put your string through when you want to string up these beads. And then just keep rolling. You can also, once you have it kind of going really well, you can also just do this. And then just keep turning it and rolling it. You can see it's just rolling up like that until you get it all nice and rolled, and kind of push down on the sides like that just to keep it as tight as possible. And if it has like a little white part at the end, I usually just chop that part off. Some good scissors are always good to have handy on any craft. And then I just glue the other end shut. Just like that. So we have a nice little paper roll. And this is just a nice, straight, simple bead. One thing that I also like the all for is, like I said, it's a good size for the bead that I want to make. And it just keeps it nice and tight that way. All right, so that is our little just simple bead. So I'll just go ahead and put that aside for right now. All right, the next one I want to do is more of a cone shape, and what that's going to do is give us something similar to this. That gives us all of these little beads where the center is a bit wide and the ends taper down, kind of like a football shape almost. And those are really simple. All you need to do, there's two ways of doing this. You can cut so you're going at an angle until you get to the middle, and then do the same thing on the other side, all the way up until you make yourself a triangle. It's not my favorite way because I tend to make it really wonky, but that's okay. So you just want to make some sort of triangle. The cool thing is that you're probably going to end up with two more different size triangles, right? So you have 3 beads ready to go right there, 3 of them to do it. One of the other ways that I like to do it, especially if I have something bigger, is I will fold my piece long ways in half. Just like that. It doesn't have to be perfect. That's what I like about these beads. They're really forgiving. You don't have to be super precise or anything. But I'll just fold it in half like that and try to make it as even as possible. And then I can, so this is the center, this is the folded center, and this is like the opening part right here. And this is a little easier for me for some reason. And you can make these as long or short as you want. This one, it's a pretty long piece of paper, so it's gonna make a really fat bead, but so I cut it off a little bit. Then that gives you another little one. Plus you get 2 more. Now here's a little cool thing about this one. See how it ended up like in 2 pieces like that? That actually will be to our advantage. So if you want to just clean this up, this is another shape that you can do to make sort of like a double bead. And that's gonna give you more of a bead like this one. So this is gonna look, it's almost like a dumbbell looking thing. It tapers, it's almost like 2 beads stuck together. So it still tapers down, but then it has a skinny middle. So it's kind of cool. Now this is another one that can be created off of that one. The only thing I would do is maybe clean off those ends so there's no white tip on it. It just looks cuter, just like that. Now one thing that you can also do is ink the edges before rolling it if you want to. So you can get yourself an ink pad. Like I said, some of the things you might want are ink pads, stuff like that. But you could go ahead and just ink the edges just before starting, just to give your bead a little dimension. And then other cuts that you can do to make all kinds of different beads. There are so many different cuts. If you know, Google paper beads, there's so many templates for different sizes. If you're taking the workshop, the paid workshop, or if you've gotten a pass, you will have those templates as well. You can see you can add just a little bit of ink detail to it to make it a little different. And let's go ahead and roll these so that you can get an idea of what these different ones will look like. So again, we're just gonna start with folding over the end of that. You wanna make it as tight as you can, right? So fold it over, add some glue to the edge, grab your awl or whatever else you have. Even if you just fold it over without an awl, make sure there's at least a little hole in there. And then just press it down as tightly as you can to the edge of the awl. Okay, so one thing I'll do is I'll come and clean up this little edge. I have some smaller scissors that I do that with. So I'll take this off for a second and just clean it so that there's no little things sticking out of the edges right here. So it's just all cleaned up. And then we're going to do the same thing. What I do is I hold it right here with my thumb against here just to help make it tight while I roll it. So at the very beginning is where I'm really careful about pulling it nice and tight. And then just begin rolling. Like I said, you can do this motion to roll it. And the whole thing is just to try to keep this in the center. Now the cool part is if we fold it right there, and because I added some ink right there in the middle, I can keep that lined up the whole time. And that will help keep it centered even better. And you just roll that guy up. All right, and once you get a little tail about 1 inch or so, go ahead and glue that last bit down. Okay. You see you have a cute little bead, a little bit of a cone shape happen on both sides. One side's a little bigger, it's not a big deal, just the way I rolled it. But you also have the blue on the ends to give it more of a blue look. Now I could always go in here also and just ink the rest of it if I wanted to. No big deal. So I'll put that one aside. And then let's do this little double guy. Okay, so the way I do this one is very, very similar until we start getting up here. So we're just gonna fold those down again, add a little glue, fold that over, make that as tight as you can to the edge of this, and then start your rolling. Okay. Now, once you get to these two guys, it gets a little harder to get the two under control. So I'll usually just do one at a time. I'm trying to make sure that it stays as tight as possible to the edge, so you keep a tight roll. This one got a little wonky on me, but that's okay. All right, and again, once you get to about 1 inch or so, or where it's really thin, go ahead and wrap that with glue around, and then just do the other side. Now just keep in mind that this one's going off at an angle to the side, so it's going to end up sticking to the side more rather than doing that little center football shape. It's going to give you more of this kind of shape where it's heavy on one end only and thin on the other. And in this case, it'll be heavy on the edges and taper in the center. The cool thing is I can grab this now to help me roll it. Roll that over. You get kind of that look, more like a barrel-y look. It's really cool. All right, so see, now we have like more like a barrel look, okay? So if you have it all pointing to one side, it's gonna give you that look. All kinds of different looks. Like I said, there's different ways you can cut them. You can cut them straight, tapered, partially tapered. It's up to you. Just cut them different sizes, different lengths, different widths. It's gonna give you all kinds of different little beads. You can make really, really tiny ones, really, really big ones, all different. All right. So now once you have your beads all wrapped and you have a ton of scraps that you can make them with, of course, then we're going to go ahead and then just seal them up. Now this is totally optional. You don't have to seal them. I definitely prefer to seal them to keep them in place and so they don't unravel or anything like that. You could always glue along the way as you're twisting them up, but that tends to make a little bit of mess. But what I like to use is triple thick. It is very, very thick, heavy gloss, but I can just paint it on pretty easily. They do make sprays and things like that. I just don't prefer to use the spray. It just makes, you know, too much of a scent. So all I do is get this out and just dab the triple thick all over it. And what I'll do is I'll brush down on it to get kind of in the grooves of everything to hold it really well. Other things you're always going to want for any workshop is, you know, something to clean up with, some wipes, paper towels, cleaner, anything like that, just because you're probably going to spill, and protect your surface at all times. And I never learned the first time, but you want to protect your surface. And I just hold it down like that and then try to get all the way around the bead, just to give it like the base coat at least first, just to make sure that it is covered in the glass. And then I'll just go around the whole thing, spinning it as I go. And then if you want to make it really so that it's nice and even, you can hold it a little bit, clean up the glass all the way around it. You can also put extra coats on. Once it's dry, you can come back and add another coat. And so what I'll do is I'll grab the flower frog and I'll just push this little guy off. And I'll either, if it's comes out pretty well, I can sometimes get it on one of those little spiky nails right there and just have it hold it and let it dry. Like I said, you always want something so that you can wipe this off and you can wipe your surface off. So you want to get it off of here, even in between each one, because this actually dries pretty quick if you're using this. So then we're going to get the other one, do the same thing. So this time I'm getting all around the outside, but I want to make sure I get into all the outside, you know, top and bottom areas. I'll usually turn it over like this so that I can get the other side covered. Like I said, the thicker you put it on, the glossier it's going to be. It looks really cool because it looks like a glass bead. Like that. So make sure it's all nice and covered. You want to make sure that you run it through so that you have enough. You don't want it so soaking that your hole gets covered, so be careful with that. And that's why you want to make sure you put it on something so you can avoid getting it in the hole itself. Otherwise you're gonna have to like try to burrow back through that hole later. All right, we'll get our little dumbbell looking one. And you're done. So you can make a ton of those, just roll them out like crazy. And then when you're all done, you can string them, like I said, on a book, just like this. I have them on the sides right here. You can see the string in between right there, and they slide on there. And I made them different sizes and colors, inked them up different ways, added glitter to some of them. You can see a little sparkle on some of these guys. And if you want to do that as well, you can definitely do that. So if you have yourself some glitter, you of course want something to pour this glitter onto. And you could always just add some glitter to it. And I'll usually do that right after I add my triple thick. I like to use translucent glitters, translucent, iridescent. So off camera, I just kind of blew it off a little bit so there wasn't so much. And just let that dry there. So now I have a nice glittery one. And that is it. That one's pretty simple to make the beads, but you can make them, like I said, all kinds of different ways, all kinds of different shapes, thicknesses, heights, everything. So let's set those aside to dry while we get ready to do our next project. Okay, so the next project we're going to be making is the little puff ruffle. It's actually super, super simple as well. And again, all you're going to need is your scraps of any size. The more tattered, the better. It's just a little more fun that way. And then something to attach them to. So you can either attach them directly to the item you're making. So for instance, like I could just put them straight on here, or you want to have something to attach them to, like I did here. It's on a piece of cardstock that is already cut. And usually what I'll do is I'll just get a piece of cardstock about the size of whatever it is that I want to put it onto. So we'll just use this one as an example, and you can do it in different sizes. Since we're going to be making two different ones, two different sizes, just to show you an example, I'm going to cut these both. So you can make it so that it has a nice clean edge. You can ink up your edges again like we did before. One of the things I like to do, because it is scrap and I just like things tattered and scrappy, is you can rip the edges up on the sides of your paper. If you go up, it'll leave like the little white mark on the edge right here. And I just like to do that just to give it a nice little interesting look. You can also, if you want to, get like shape scissors and then, you know, just cut along the edge. This one happens to be like a rough edge type of shape, but it doesn't leave me the little white mark. But you can use all kinds of different things. It can be a clean strip, it can be a not so clean strip, it doesn't really matter. The point is to have a strip of paper. Now, the other thing is you may need several around the same width, depending on how long you want something to end up being. So right now, I'm just gonna go ahead and pull this all up. And I'll show you a couple of ways to do this. It's fairly simple. All right, so once you have your strip prepared however you want it, whether it's just cut or whatever, then we're gonna go ahead and actually just attach it to our base piece. Now, what I like to do is start off with just a little glue to start off with. All right, so I like to start with a little glob of glue, about an inch or so up, just in the center. And we're gonna do one of our first tucks like that under. And we're gonna just glue it to the edge right there. And that's our first little loop. You can see that that's just folded over like that, okay? The next thing you're gonna do is you are going to fold it over, make a little loop, hopefully that's coming in nice and clean, and then glue the next part down, just like that. And you're just gonna repeat that. You're gonna fold it. You can go this way. If you need to, you can hold your finger right there so it makes another little loop about the same size and glue it just at the edge of where that loop ends. So you're not gluing down the whole area. And then you just repeat. You just keep going. It doesn't have to be super duper neat. And then once you start running out of glue or if it starts drying, you just add another strip. You don't want to put it all the way through because your glue is likely to dry before you can even get it down. And I'll usually sometimes go in here and just push it down with a pair of tweezers because that's about the only amount that you want glued down is the width of the tweezers. You can push that down. The width of the tweezers right on the glue. So again, you can see right here, it's where it's glued down. We're gonna make a little ruffle just underneath that other one and then press down and then just keep going. And I'm pushing it with my nail just on the edge too, but I just find the tweezers a little easier. And then again, add another set of glue and we're just gonna keep going. All right, so we made our first set of little ruffles like that, and you can be done like that. Now, if you for some reason accidentally like smashed this so that this ended up like completely flat instead of giving you a little bubble, that's okay, don't worry about it. Because what we're gonna do is we can take either our tweezers or our all pokey tool that we were using before to puff these out. And what I'm doing is I'm just going in between each one of these layers and making sure that in between is glued down nicely. And I'm lifting them all up. So you can see these are laid down and you could just leave them like that. But now I'm lifting them all up just to make sure that that is covered in between. So see this one, I accidentally kind of almost flattened it. And that's okay, we're just gonna puff it out. So remove that, push it, move that, push it, that and push it again, and we're just gonna keep going. And then this one is the first one we made, so it's kind of like already glued down. And then what we want to do is we can use our awl, we can use our fingers, whatever. But basically what I do is just puff back out my loop just to make it a little more puffy. Some of these got a little closed looking. You can stick like a small thin dowel, whatever you want, just to open these guys back up. They got smashed a little. This one's almost completely flat on me. What I'll do is I'll pick them up and then just kind of give them a squish down, just like that, so that they get a little puffier. I mean, like I said, you could always leave it the other way as that kind of a ruffle, but I like to make them nice and puffed out for this particular look that I'm wanting to achieve on this one. And by no means do they have to be perfect. As you can see, they all ended up different little sizes, but I think that's the cute appeal to it. And then you could always extend this out. You can grab another piece, different color, same color, attach it there, and then just complete the ruffle process all the way to the end if you like. Or you could just use this little end for whatever you need it to be, which is really cool. And then I'll show you another trick on it in a minute, but we'll go ahead and let that dry up a little. And then we'll do another one just for practice sakes. We're gonna add glue to the end, remember? About an inch or so. We're gonna have our first little loop by flipping it that way and gluing that little loop down. You can make bigger loops if you want to. So with this one, we're actually making a really bigger size loop. So this one's pulled over more. And I'm gonna glue that right there with a much bigger loop. Okay. So then we're gonna go ahead and add that extra glue. And we are gonna do the same thing. We are gonna bring that loop all the way out this time. And you can see it's making a much, much bigger loop right there. But we're still only attaching a little bit there. You just keep going until you reach the very end. And now you have a much bigger loop. Now I didn't end up all the way at the sides, and that's okay because this is basically my base. I can have the base showing or I don't have to have it showing. And it kind of ended up migrating to the side, but that's okay. So you can see these are much bigger loops. It's much bigger here. So it's up to you. You can leave them looking like that, and they make really cute things around corners for closures and stuff like that. Or you can do the same thing, pull these loops out, and now go ahead and make your little squeezes and make them bigger. These bigger ones kind of remind me of how when they show peacock feathers or something. And so see, this is much, much bigger loops. And they pull over a lot more when you make them. You can even square them out a little more. But again, go in between and make sure that that's glued down. So you might want to give them a little time in between drying just to make sure it sticks. And then push them down. And so these make much, much bigger little edges. Plus you have these little sections in between to do things with as well. All right. So we have those two. And one of the things that you can do is you can leave your edges big and, you know, decorate out your edges like that. Add ink to the edges of this part, you know, however you want to decorate it. This, you can make it so you can't see it at all. And you could just cut off all the parts now that you don't want showing to even it all up to make it nice and neat. So you can add this anywhere. So you could always add this to like the edge of a little book, on the spine, you know, something to close it up, a closure, whatever you want. Again, like we did here with the ruffles. And then the other thing that I like to do is decorate kind of in between them. So I'll show you how I made that other one. So what I did, I'm just going to hold it so that way I can hold it like this without putting my fingers all over it so it doesn't block you. But I use like this little white moss and beads. And so what I did was just get in these little cracks, add some glue, grab little bits of this moss, and just use my tweezers and push them in there. I do recommend that if you get tweezers to get Teflon coated or non-stick tweezers. That really helps when making things. See, I just opened up some here and there. Add more glue. Add more moss. And it can be moss. It can be, there's a thing called Flower Soft. I'll show you that. Or these little fluffy things. So there's things like this. Originally it was called Flower Soft, and I don't know, you call it all kinds of different things. Different people make it now. But it's basically like just crushed up like spongy like things, and it makes it look like little flower bushes and stuff for miniatures or whatever. And you could get in here and add it so it looks like flowers. It does make it a little messy, especially if you end up with glue on your fingers. These things are going to stick to your fingers a little. But you can see it in between. Think of it like glitter though, so you might want to put something underneath just to catch all the extra. And I'm putting it up and building it up the side just so it sticks up a bit. I just kind of press it in there. See, it makes it just a little more interesting, just a little cuter. And if I want, I can go right here on the side. Put some of the green one. Make it look a little more garden-y like, especially if you're using flowers or anything. You see, you can make so many cute little different things with it, and it looks really cute. You can add beads, whatever you like. I'm not going to add those back in here so I don't mix them up too much. And then I have like these little dried flowers. I mean, you can go crazy with this and just experiment with whatever you'd like to add to it. So I'm just adding a dab of glue. Just basically don't be afraid to experiment and add whatever you would like. And you can see how cute that is. You can put that along a spine. You can put that along the edge of something. You know, make this a closure like I made the other one to close up a book or anything like that. It can be thick, it can be thin, and it's nicely, it can wrap around the edge as well, which is kind of cool, which is what I did on this one here where it wrapped all the way around. You can create all kinds of really cool looks with it, which is what I love, and it looks really pretty. And that is it. This one's really simple. There's all kinds of different ways that you can do it in different places that you can put it on, but this one is really, really, really simple. All right, so let's clean up and let's get ready for our last one, which is going to be our mini stamp stacks. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do is our little stamp stacks. They're really, really simple, again, using all of your different scraps and little itty bitty things that end up left over. I love using cardboard on this, and the whole point is layering. That's our biggest goal here, is to layer. Now for this one, you're gonna need, again, just your scraps. You can use little bits of papers, little stamp images, old stamps for this, little cutouts, things like that. This is really good for all those small ones. You're like, what am I gonna do with this? Itty bitty things, little things that you can cut out of the edges of your papers and stuff like that. And of course you want your scrap bits. If you got my paper stack, there is some stamp images on there. They're a little bit bigger, but you can make larger stamp stacks, smaller stamp stacks. These are a little bit bigger. You can zoom out and make these 50% smaller if you want smaller stamps, you know, big ones, little ones, whatever. All right, and then you're gonna want just some, like I said, extra scraps of cardstock or whatever. It doesn't really matter if it's thin or thick. Here's some that I kind of pre-cut before. And this is really simple, but the point is to stack. This is why they call them mini stamp stacks. So get out all of your scraps and bits, and we are gonna get started on this one. So the one thing I really like about this one is you don't really have to do any measuring. This one you can really eyeball and do it however you want. So for instance, if I want to make one of these that's a little bit bigger, so I really like how big some of these are for stamps. They're really, really, really pretty images. So I can go in here and just cut out all my pieces. So because I have the little shaped scissors, I'm gonna go ahead and use them to cut this one out so I get that little bit of a stamp edge. If you don't have a stamp edge, it's not a big deal. They'll still look super cute. You can do like a little wavy cut if you have any little wavy scissors. Any of that works. It just looks really cute that way. And don't worry if it's not like completely even, completely square. Like I said, it's supposed to look like an old ripped up stamp that got pulled off of something, right? So what I'll do is go in here and cut my base piece. Like I said, the cool thing is there's really no measuring. It's just kind of eyeballing and making sure that something's going to fit on there initially. And if you got that covered, you got that covered. So if you do have the little wavy scissors, go ahead and cut the waves. If you don't have wavy scissors, like I said, you could always just take your scissors and make little waves yourself. It doesn't matter how they look. It could be something like that. It could make it look like it got all, you know, torn up because they're stamps, and not all stamps have the little wavy things anymore. So it's okay if it's a little tattered or whatever. If you have the scissors though, go for your scissors. It makes it easy. If you have a Cricut or something like that, you could pre-cut a whole bunch of little stamp looking things. But again, the whole point is to stack. So what I like to do is grab a base piece, the piece that's gonna be my main focal point. I like getting cardboard and just ripping off piece that's a little smaller than my base. And I want to make sure that I can see the little corrugated part. So I'll rip off the paper off of just the top layer, and I'll leave the bottom layer to help me glue. Okay. Now, one thing that I like to do with this is either get an ink pad and ink and like kind of just ink up my edges, give it a little more, you know, dimension this way. The same thing with the edges of the little stamps or whatever. I like adding just a little bit more visual interest to it. So then I'll also bring out like my paint pens or whatever, add little bits of paint in places. You know, just go in there and become the mixed media artist that you've always wanted to be or already are. You can add splashes, you can do sprays, whatever you like. For this layer though, my whole thing is to try to get as much on the edges rather than the middle, because the middle is probably going to get pretty covered up. And I like to do it a little bit at an angle. So I think this needs to be made just a tiny bit smaller. Yeah. So I'll go ahead and just glue this down. For my first layer here, a little bit of an angle there. So in making sure that any parts that I really want shown are like kind of more on the edge. And I try not to push down too hard because then your corrugate might get pushed down a little. But remember how like we puffed up our puffy thing before? We can always go in here and puff back out that corrugate part just to make it look all nice and fluffy again. So I'll go in there and just re-pop that out just to give us some extra dimension. Don't forget to clean off your stuff. One of the other things that I like to use is either washi tape or it's kind of something that I started just playing with, but this is actually like first aid paper tape. So it kind of works like washi tape, but I'll get a strip of it and I'll just kind of bunch it up and lay it in here on another edge or something just to give it a little more dimension and just kind of push it down in there. And the whole point again is to get, you know, some of what is there showing on the edges. You can get actual washi tapes. Here's some washi tape that I have that has more of that pinky thing on there. This one happens to be really cool because it has a thing that just says the rose with a little poem or something underneath it. Actually, a lot of these had songs on them. But I'm going to pull that piece off just like that and hold that in reserve for this. But you can see we've already gotten some layers. So what I'm going to do now is just add some bits here. And I'm just going to go the opposite direction of what I had before and add that layer. So now we got some layers going right there, and that's a little paper stack. So you got, you know, your main paper, your cardstock, your cardboard, this little paper tape or washi, whatever you want. I'm going to add another layer. The cool thing, like I said, is this has a thing called the rose. I'm just going to kind of go around it a little. Make sure the word still shows. I wonder if I have to cut it, but as long as the word still shows pretty well, I'm going to add that just there, just to make it a little more prettiness there. Like, how pretty is that? I'm just wrapping it. As long as you can still see the word, the rose, that's really, really cute, I think. And of course, you make a nice big mess. And then I highly encourage to add a little extra layer of something. So there's another little extra layer of greenery. It can stick out of the side if you want it to, just like that. Another layer, the whole point is to stack layer after layer. It can go off to the side here, however you want. I'm kind of liking it there, but then I kind of liked it there just to stack it up. And what I'll do is I'll just get myself a little piece of cardstock or something and just roll it up into a bit of a ball. So instead of using like a foam thing or whatever, or another piece of cardboard, just something. So here's some corrugated cardboard, I'm just creating my layer to make this pop up instead of having to pull out like foam dots or whatever. Not to mention this will take a lot longer to break down than a foam dot. Not break down, I shouldn't say that. This will actually break down faster like in a landfill, but it will take a longer for the adhesive to fail you. On a foam dot, the adhesive tends to disintegrate after a while, and your foam dots will just fall off. Your foam like tape and stuff like that. So I added another layer just with some cardboard underneath it and added that in there. So now you have a really pretty layer, and I did a bigger version so you guys can actually see it nice and big. So you can see that's a really cute stack, but I still want just a little more, just a little. So right here along the edge, I'm gonna add some globs of glue. And I'm gonna go over here to these little beads that I have. And they're just these glass, they're beads, they're not jewelry beads, they don't have holes in them. They're just these ones that I found, I guess they're supposed to be kind of like vase fillers and stuff like that, that I found in the floral vase filler section that they have at Michael's, usually on the sides. You know, where they have like crushed glass and stuff. And I just put it, and I grabbed a bag, they have a huge bag. And I'm just putting that on the side. You can see that, it gives it just a little more visual texture. I'm going to do the same thing on this end to fill up this end right here. It's also a really good way to hide things that you don't want showing. So I can get some of this moss. And this is white reindeer moss. And I can push this along the side, give it more visual texture just out of the side right there. And look at how cute that is. And then fill in the rest of anything that is still wet with some more of these beads. And let that pop out. Look how pretty that is. And then think how cute would this be, you know, on a little book end like that, inside of a mini journal or junk journal. You know, this is a little pop-up, but how pretty is that? It's a little book that I made. But how cute would that be? Just right on top like that. So you can see all the different ways that you can make it in different stacks and things like that. You can make it in so many different layers and so many different sizes using a bunch of different things. But you kind of get the idea. I can still hear beads falling. But you can see that's all nice and pretty. And then you just add it to your bits. And that's it. Super duper simple. Layer, stack, paint. This is a really fun way to just use all those little things that you never get around to using, especially like little packs of stickers and washies, just all that fun stuff that you collect, but they're small or you don't have, you know, that much of it. You only have a little bit left of something. It works really well because you only need small bits of everything. You saw that was just like literally scraps left over from another project that I did, basically when I was making the full-size book. And you can see how you can incorporate everything you did into the smaller things into something much bigger. You know, the edges, your beads, the little stamp on the side, you know, I could put a little double thing like that, make a bigger version of everything. On the inside, it would be really, really pretty for decorating. On the corners of pages, in the middle of pages, I mean, how pretty is that? Just with a little stack. And then your beads and everything else. All right, so I hope you enjoyed that. And I hope to see everything that you make. Don't forget, you can always go to my website, join free membership. There is no catch. This membership is always just free. And it'll give you access to freebies and everything. The freebies, you can get like these stamps and all the paper that we used for the projects today. But all the different things that we made that are so flipping cute. So see, you can make all of these things really, really simply. And your beads should probably be dry by now as well. They dry pretty quickly if you're using that. So here's all the different little beads now that I can add. And then if you wanted to, you could even add the little beads to your bits and areas and stuff like that. But how fun are all these little projects that you can do just using your scrap pieces? All these little stamps, bigger stamps, different things. I really love the beads and everything like that. So be sure to tag me with Scrap Embellishments, Misfit Crafter, If you decide to share or post these, share them up in the group, share them wherever you found this class. You should be connected to a group of some kind for this particular workshop, whether it be on my website or from an event. You should be linked to that. And I can't wait to see what you make. I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for joining. Bye.